She vanished. After signing the rejection papers, the Alpha King found her raising his twin daughters. The pen felt heavier than it should have been. Mira Voss stared at the blank line where her name would go. Rejected mate, by her own hand. The council clerk tapped his foot on the marble floor, impatient. Behind her, she could feel King Ashdraven standing there, silent, waiting, the way a person waits when they already know they have lost something they cannot get back. She signed her name. The ink was barely dry before she walked out of that hall. She did not look back. She did not look back. Not there. Not where anyone could see it. She had learned long ago that tears were a luxury for people who had somewhere safe to fall apart. Mira did not have that luxury. Not anymore. What no one in that cold marble room knew was that Mira was carrying two hearts inside her that were not her own. Two small lives that would grow up never knowing their father's face, never knowing the weight of the crown that should have been theirs too. She left the kingdom that same night, taking only a small bag and the money she had saved in secret for months, as if some part of her had known this day was coming. She traveled far, further than she thought she could manage, until she found a small town where no one asked questions, and no one cared about titles or bloodlines. It was a plain, quiet place, with one main street, a hardware store, a church with a crooked steeple, and a diner that smelled like coffee and burnt toast every morning. She took a job at that diner. She learned to smile at strangers, even on the days she did not feel like smiling. She learned to save every extra dollar. She learned to be both mother and father to two baby girls, who arrived only 7 months after she left the kingdom, screaming and healthy and so full of life that Mira sometimes forgot, for a few hours at a time, that her heart was still broken. She named them Nessa and Wren. Nessa was the loud one, the one who declared opinions about everything from breakfast cereal to bedtime, like she was arguing a court case. Wren was quieter, always watching, always noticing things before anyone else did. Both girls had their father's eyes, a deep amber color that seemed to catch the light strangely, almost glowing in certain moments. Mira used to look away from those eyes when she tucked them in at night, because looking too long reminded her of things she had worked very hard to forget. 5 years passed this way, slow years, but also years that moved faster than Mira expected. She worked long shifts at the diner. She learned to fix a leaking faucet by watching videos on an old phone. She learned which neighbor to trust with the girls when she had to work late, and which neighbor to politely avoid. She built a small, steady life out of very little, and for the most part it was enough. But some nights, after the girls were asleep, Mira would sit on the back porch of their tiny rented house and look up at the stars, and she would let herself think about the life she had left behind. She would remember the sound of Ash's voice before everything fell apart. She would remember the way he used to laugh, low and surprised, like he wasn't used to being happy, and didn't quite trust it when it happened. She would remember signing those papers, and she would remember why she had done it. She had done it to save him. She had done it to save herself. She had done it because the council would never have accepted her, an outsider with no title and no bloodline worth mentioning, and staying would have meant a war that could have ended with both of them losing everything, including their lives. Better to disappear. Better to let him keep his throne and his kingdom and his safety, even if it meant she lost him completely. She never regretted protecting her daughters. She only sometimes wondered, quietly, in the dark, what would have happened if she had stayed and fought instead of running. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, the diner smelled like burnt coffee and maple syrup, same as always. Mira stood behind the counter, flipping eggs with one hand while holding a crayon hostage with the other, because Nessa had declared, quite seriously, that Wren was coloring outside the lines, and this was apparently a serious problem that needed a mother's involvement. Mom, she is coloring outside the lines. It is a crisis, Nessa said, her small face full of dramatic concern. It is a coloring page, sweetheart, not a crisis, Mira said, laughing under her breath as she slid the eggs onto a plate. Wren, calm as always, kept coloring without even looking up. I like going outside the lines. The lines are boring. See? She admits it. A crisis, Nessa said, throwing her hands up like a tiny lawyer who had just won her case. Mira smiled, a real smile, The kind she had earned slowly over 5 years of hard work and long nights. This was her life now. Small, simple, but hers. And most days, that was enough. Then the bell above the diner door rang. Mira did not look up right away. The regular customers did not need to be announced. She could tell who was walking in, just from the sound of their shoes on the floor. But this time, the room went quiet in a strange way. It was the kind of quiet that happens right before something important occurs, the kind of stillness that makes the hair on your arms stand up before your mind understands why. She looked up. Ash Draven stood in the doorway. He looked different than she remembered, and also exactly the same. His hair was a little longer, his shoulders seemed heavier, like he was carrying something invisible, but his eyes, that same deep amber that her daughters had inherited, were unmistakable. Mira's hand found the edge of the counter without her even deciding to reach for it. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was sure everyone in the diner could hear it. He did not say her name right away. He looked past her, toward the booth in the corner, where two small heads were bent over a coloring page, arguing about crayon technique, like it was the most important thing in the world. He looked at them for a long moment. Too long. Long enough that Mira understood, with a cold and sudden certainty, that he already knew. Mira, he finally said. Just her name. But it seemed to cost him more effort than she expected, like the word had been sitting in his chest for 5 years, waiting for the chance to come out. She straightened her back, trying to look calmer than she felt. You should not be here. They are mine, he said quietly, his eyes never leaving the booth. They are mine, Mira said, her voice firm and steady, the voice of a woman who had worked double shifts and raised 2 children alone and would not apologize for surviving. At the booth, Wren looked up first, noticing the stranger the way she noticed everything, quickly and quietly. Mom, who is the man staring at us like he is going to cry? But he is too handsome to actually do it. Nessa, still deeply focused on her crayon argument, added without looking up. Is he the king from the story you never tell right? Mira closed her eyes for a moment. The story she never told right, because the true story did not have a happy ending yet, and children deserve happy endings, even the pretend kind. Ashe walked closer, slowly, the way a person moves when they are afraid that any sudden motion might make everything disappear again. He crouched down near the booth, careful and calm, despite the storm. Mira could see clearly written across his face. Hello, he said gently to the girls. My name is Ash. I know, Wren said, studying him with the same steady patience she used for everything. You have our eyes. Nessa finally looked up, comparing his face to her sister's, then to her own reflection in the shiny diner window. Huh, you really do. Mira wanted to say something, to stop this moment before it went any further, but her voice would not come. 5 years of careful walls she had built around her heart were shaking, just from the sound of his voice speaking gently to their daughters. I signed those papers because I had no choice, Mira said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. You let me leave. Ash stood up slowly and turned to face her fully. I was 17 days away from losing everything to a council that would have found a way to hurt you simply for existing, he said, his voice cracking slightly in the middle, and he did not try to hide it. I signed what I had to sign to keep you alive. I never agreed to goodbye. Not once, not ever. Something in Mira's chest, something she had locked away and buried under years of work and worry and quiet nights alone, cracked just slightly. She did not let it break open completely. Not yet. Not in the middle of a diner with syrup on the counter, and customers pretending not to listen. Girls, she said, forcing her voice to sound light and normal, the voice she used when she needed a moment to think. Finish your breakfast. Wren studied the stranger a moment longer, her amber eyes calm and curious. Okay, she said, but he should stay for pancakes. He looks hungry and sad. Sad people should always eat pancakes. Ashe Draven, a king who had spent 5 long years searching in secret for the woman and children he had lost, laughed suddenly, a surprised and unguarded sound, like something inside him had finally remembered how to work properly. Mira did not laugh, not right away, but she did pour the pancake batter onto the griddle, her hands steady even though her heart was not. Over the next few weeks, Ash did not push. He did not demand. He simply stayed nearby, taking a small room above the hardware store, learning the rhythm of the little town the same slow way Mira once had. He picked the girls up from school sometimes, always asking Mira first, always respecting the careful boundaries she set. He learned that Nessa liked to argue about everything and needed someone to take her seriously even when she was being dramatic. He learned that Wren noticed everything and needed quiet moments where she could simply be listened to without being rushed. Slowly, without either of them announcing it out loud, Ash became part of their small, ordinary life. He fixed the same leaking faucet Mira had once learned to fix herself, laughing when she told him she already knew how. He sat on the back porch some evenings, not too close, just close enough, while the girls chased fireflies in the yard. One night, months after he first walked through the diner door, Mira found herself sitting beside him on that same porch, looking up at the same stars she used to search alone. "I never stopped thinking about you," Ash said quietly. "Even when I told myself I had to let you go. I never stopped either," Mira admitted, the words feeling strange and freeing all at once, like putting down something heavy she had carried for far too long. "I am not asking you to come back to a crown or a kingdom," he said. "I am asking if there is room, somewhere in this small life you built, for me to stay in it too." Mira looked at him for a long moment, then glanced toward the yard where her daughters were laughing, chasing lights in the dark, safe and happy and whole. "There is room," she said finally. "As long as you understand, this is their life first. Whatever it looks like now, it stays theirs." "I understand," Ash said. "I do not want to take them anywhere. I just want to be here, with them, with you, if you will let me." Mira did not answer with words. She simply reached over and took his hand, the way she used to before everything fell apart, and for the first time in 5 years, the silence between them felt peaceful instead of painful. Inside the house, Nessa peeked through the window, whispering loudly to her sister, "Told you pancakes would fix everything." Wren, ever calm, simply nodded. "I still think it was the fireflies." Either way, under a sky full of stars, in a small town that had quietly become home, a family that once seemed impossible, slowly, carefully, began to find its way back together.